morning, Matthew. Your reaction to the results last night and this morning?
Well, I mean, obviously it's bad news for the Labour Party. This is potentially the beginning of a serious rebellion against Keir Starmer and the party's positioning around Israel-Gaza. But let me be a dissenting voice this morning, Mark. Here's what I think. Look, Galloway will be a problem for Labour. He's a charismatic campaigner and so on. But if you actually look at the seats where Galloway is going to be running, seats with large numbers of British Muslims, a lot of those seats, Mark, already have big Labour majorities. Now, when you also take into account the national polling, that Labour's likely, on current numbers this morning, probably going to win a majority of somewhere between 150 and 200 seats, I think at best Galloway maybe costs the Labour Party half a dozen seats. I mean, I think this is going to be a rebellion, in other words, that the Labour Party is actually going to be able to navigate. I think they're going to get away with actually moving past Galloway.
Will Galloway stand, do you think, Matt, in Rochdale? There's a talk that he would go to his former constituency in London.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I mean, I suspect Galloway will move away from Rochdale to somewhere like Bethnal Green and Bow, or somewhere in Birmingham, West Midlands, maybe Bradford, Yorkshire, where he's got that track record. But remember, right, in the past, Galloway's not held his seats. I mean, yes, he's a charismatic campaigner, but if you look at the seats he's won previously at by-elections, he's never been able to turn this sort of lightning rod foreign policy issue into a sustainable national movement. There are not 60 George Galloways here, right? He said he's going to stand candidates in 60 seats. There are not 60 George Galloways. I mean, who else is in this party? We don't really know. So I don't think they're going to have the charismatic presence and the impact that we might be expecting them to have based on some of the commentary in some of the media this morning. Yes, he's a problem, but Mark, he's also potentially being overestimated.
Now, Matthew, you've just predicted that a Labour government is likely coming. Will it be one of division?
Well, Labour are divided on this issue of Israel-Gaza. They are, very strongly divided. We've seen that over recent weeks. Not just that. I mean, we've also got, I think, some lingering tensions from the Corbyn era, the Corbyn regime. You've got a lot of MPs that aren't really sure where the Labour Party stand on a number of big issues, Mark. Where are they on taxation? Where are they on industrial policy? Where are they on things like levelling up? They've just rolled back the Green Deal. Well, that's alienated a lot of Labour Party activists. You know, to be frank, we don't really know that much about this incoming Labour government. I mean, if we look at the polls and we're going into some sort of Labour majority government, Labour minority government, whatever, we don't actually know that much about the party. We know instinctively where it wants to go, but actually there's a lot of detail that isn't there yet. And I think that's probably something that will inevitably find its expression in internal party tensions.
Really poor result overnight, Matt, for Richard Tice and the Reform Party. Simon Danchuk was a controversial character to select in that seat. But of course, he's very much a Rochdale born and bred lad. We've seen some pictures here of Richard Tice, who was canvassing up there with him. What does Richard do this morning? What does he learn from this result?
Well, Reform certainly underperformed. I mean, nationally, they're averaging 11% in the polls. We saw them do a little bit better than that at the Wellingborough by-election recently. They should have done a lot better in Rochdale. It does have quite a significant white working class vote. They should really have momentum behind them, given where they are nationally. So there is something not quite clicking here for Reform. I would even argue, Bev, as well, that Reform should have done better at both Wellingborough and Kingswood, given the enormous disillusionment there is in the country over the issues that Reform is targeting, stopping the small boats. We learned only yesterday from new data in the Home Office that we've only removed 1.3% of people who have come over on small boats. We also learned yesterday that we're granting 99% of all asylum applications to people from the likes of Afghanistan and so on. Now Reform, based on this fiasco in government, should be doing a lot better. So something isn't clicking. Is it money? Is it manpower? Is it leadership? Is it charisma? What is it?
But is it just voter apathy? Because you've just said then about the white working class man and woman who might want to go out and feel that Reform represents their small c conservative values. They aren't organised, that community. We've seen last night the Muslim community, they support each other. They know what they want. They go out there, they canvass, they get their mates, they get their families, they're getting their votes out. How do you change that if somebody like Richard Tice wants to do well?
I think it's a good point. I think you said at the beginning that the turnout rates at by-elections have been low, and that's certainly true. I mean, we've seen turnout rates again below 40%. And if you look at what's happened to the 2019 Conservative vote, only about 45–50% of those voters are still loyal to the Conservatives. Most of them are not going to reform. As you rightly point out, most of them are saying they're not going to vote at all. They're saying they're going to sit the next election out. So it's not just that Richard Tice has to figure out a way of building an electorate and getting them excited and getting them motivated to vote. He's also actually got to convince them not to drift into apathy, not to just give up on the political system altogether. And that, too, by the way, is a big problem facing Rishi Sunak. So it may be that the real winner at the next election actually isn't George Galloway. It may be that the winner is apathy and disillusionment.
Yeah, Matthew Goodwin, briefly, if you can. This victory has been achieved for George Galloway as a result largely of the Muslim vote. Is Nigel Farage right to say this is the beginning of sectarian politics in the United Kingdom?
I think it's certainly the beginning of a more divided politics that's really reflecting the extent to which we are importing grievances and conflicts from abroad. And it's going to become much more visible in the years ahead. If you look at the projections for how Britain's population is going to evolve over the next 6 years or so, we're going to see between 2010 and 2030 a 94% increase in the number of British Muslims in the country. So we'll say about 6 million. Now, so what I'm saying is this is going to have a significant impact on politics.
We've got to wrap it up, Matt. I'm so sorry. We could talk to you all morning, but we have run out of time.